Hello, and welcome to my channel. Prepare for a night of terror, psychosis, cults, night stalkers, hostages, let's not forget massacres. A night when you're in someone's unconscious mind, hoping and praying you can run away from the creepy person in your backyard, or maybe escape from the deranged person holding you hostage. Being the audience yourself, you start to ask yourself, how did I get into this transcendental science? It'll trap you in your own mind like a prisoner. Lock your doors, say your prayers, stay out of the driveway, be aware of the bumps in the night, and the prickles in the back of your neck during a good night's sleep.
Back in 2000, I had one of the most horrifying experiences. I remember coming home from a barbecue party pretty hammered. I had a bit too much to drink from a margarita pitcher, so the tequila had my head spinning. I decided to take a quick shower but ended up with my head in the toilet. I began puking my brains out from all the margaritas I had. When I began to pull myself together and dipped my face into cold water, I then tilted my head back and heard. I felt the burst of adrenaline and my heart began racing. I walked slowly down the staircase, panic-stricken. I was pretty sure all my doors were closed, but as I turned around, my back door was wide open. I walked towards the back door and all of a sudden one of my plants fell. I slammed my door shut. I made myself believe it was probably me who forgot to shut the door. And there were many times where I forgot what I was doing while intoxicated. On my way back upstairs, my lights went out. I was in complete darkness, and while intoxicated, I struggled trying to walk to the front porch. I fell and tripped on what I thought was a shoe, and dragged myself to where I had a small chair. What I saw was so unbearable. I saw a woman with what looked like a burnt face and who seemed sort of insensible. She stumbled as she walked. I couldn't even get back up after becoming so frightened. She slowly turned her head towards me, but I realized she was cockeyed. It seemed like she was sort of struggling to keep her eyes on me as she stumbled. I struggled asking her while my teeth chattered, "Are you lost? Do you need help?" She rolled her eyes and shook her head. She then reached in her pockets and began shaking what sounded like prescription pills. She started shaking the bottles with both of her hands and then stomping her feet. I freaked out and reached for a wooden stick I had in back of me, and it seemed like she noticed and quickly threw her pills at me. I finally heard her speak and she demanded that I take her upstairs in a hoarse voice while she pulled out a gun. I refused, and she grabbed me hard by the wrist. She had a pretty strong grip. It seemed though as if she's done this before because as dragging me up the stairs, she knew exactly where to rob. She noticed a safe I had in the corner and ordered me to open it. Then I realized it was only my plated jewelry, which was a huge relief. Only because I had another safe in the closet. But I anticipated what her actions were going to come to. But when she realized the jewelry was plated, she simply backed away pissed off and ran off screaming like a maniac. I've experienced many horrific situations being held at a gunpoint in my neighborhood, but after a year passed by in 2002, crime seemed to slow down quite a bit. But it wasn't until a snowy night in January, where I came back home from the deli to get a gallon of milk and a few cabinet snacks, that I realized I was being watched by a rare male who had a black hoodie on. I didn't let it faze me at first because I thought he'd probably be hanging out in the lobby with a few guys in my building. I noticed he kept his head down while walking a few feet away from me, but I continued with my light bags of groceries. I realized the elevator was out of order and had to walk up 6 flights of stairs. In times like these, I would begin to panic, because although crime had slowed down in my project building, there had been many times in the past where people had been stabbed, robbed, or just shot at on the staircases, mostly at night. I rushed while I huffed and puffed, running out of air. I finally made it through. I decided to pop in a movie, so I decided to watch When a Stranger Calls. An hour later, I realized my eyes were closing and I was ready to call it a night. I hear my landline phone ring. I picked up and heard like a chewing and murmuring sound. Hello? I continued to hear the chewing and murmur. Okay, I had enough. Who is this? I then hear an agonizing scream. I slammed the phone, pissed. I went to bed unfazed. But 5 minutes later, my phone began to ring again. Hello? Have you checked the kitchen? Who is this? I shouted, super annoyed. You dropped your debit card. What did you... I paused, and I realized going back home I struggled looking for my debit card and was too lazy to search for it. The person on the phone then says my name. Angela Salazar. I wanted to open my door, but I didn't dare to. I looked through the hole of my door, but no one was there. And I needed my debit card to survive because I couldn't bear another week for a new one. I opened the door fast, trying to find the person who said I dropped my debit card. I looked to the left and then to the right. Hello? Hello? Where are you? I asked. Nothing but silence. Then I heard a tenant open their door, telling me to keep it down. So much for help, I thought. I kept hearing more sounds, but no one was there. For a minute, I thought I was going haywire. My head started spinning. I hear a slow moaning coming from downstairs. So I did something really risky. I decided to go downstairs where no one was there. But out of nowhere, I heard a slow moaning coming from upstairs. I gave myself a slap on the cheek and convinced myself that I was going crazy. 5 minutes later, I went back upstairs and saw that my door was wide open. I walked in super slowly, opening my weak, creaky door, quickly turning on the lights. I walked backwards slowly towards my kitchen. My teapot fell on its own, and I noticed my cabinet was open. As I opened my cabinet, I noticed my $300 stash was gone. So I decided to make my way to the living room and started to hear. As I turned around, I saw the same black male who was walking a few feet away from me earlier. He had on the same black hoodie and was about 6 feet tall, with a menacing stare and slowly raising his pistol in the left hand. He ordered me to go to the room and stay put while I remained frozen. He then shot at me, and I couldn't even use the word startled, but I thought I would die in an instant. He gave me another warning, and I ran to my room. I noticed his intention was to rob more than $300 in stash, so he went for my TV. I slowly peeped through the crack of my door, and then he fired another shot because he noticed that I was watching. He yelled and said, "Stay put or you'll be another victim." I jumped back onto my bed and sobbed with my knees touching my face while sweat dripped down my spine. I prayed that he would leave quick so that I could call the police, but I noticed he began throwing pots and pans and he sounded pissed. Only pissed because he planned to rob something else, but I didn't have much else to rob. Thank God he gave up after the mess he made. But I still waited a few minutes so that I was able to make a run for it. I later bumped into 2 tenants who came out, and they told me that they noticed there was gunshots, but were too scared to open their doors to see who was shooting. It was unfortunate the cops didn't make it till 10 minutes later. Let's face it, cops were not fond of the urban neighborhood in Brooklyn I lived in at the time. I found out 3 days later that the robber was known to be a repeat offender who had served time for selling narcotics, and who was charged for the rape of a 13-year-old girl a week before my incident happened. But I thought how ironic it was that I was watching when a stranger called when this happened.